Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Preparation Parley. I hope all your preparation is going well. Let's get to the questions. How to get accustomed to solving QA without pen? Okay, there are two layers to this answer that you should be aware of. One is nobody expects you to solve QA questions without pen for every question. You're not expected to solve every question without pen. But on the other hand, you have to be aware, you have to be conscious of the fact that there are certain questions that can happen without using the pen. And this ability is developed via a lot of rigorous practice and by you actively seeking to solve questions without using pen. How to develop this ability? There are two ways to go about it. One is when you're doing practice. When you're doing practice, at that time you have to take judgment calls about questions. Usually, only when people are solving questions in mocks or in sectionals, at that time they are making judgment calls about questions, whether I should do it in round one or round two or round three. A better way to tackle this entire problem would be even when you're practicing, when you look at a question, when you read a question for the first time, the first approach to it has to be that you rate the question, whether this is worth solving in round one, whether this is worth solving in round two, or whether this is best left alone under exam conditions. And if at all you're claiming it should be solved in round one, then you should be solving it without the pen under 1 minute. If you are able to do so, your rating was correct. If you're unable to do so, if you need to write stuff down, then your rating was not right. And you don't need to have 100% accuracy in your rating, but more often than not, your rating should be right. The second part of it is after you have solved a question, then you have to pay attention to, was there a way by which I could have solved it smartly? Here, the kind of guidance that you have access to, the coaching that you're taking or the friend group with which you're studying, there you would have to look at the best ways of solving the question. But then again, the objective is not that you have to find the absolute best way of every question. See, the expectation is out of 22 odd questions in the quant section, even if you're able to solve, let's say, like 5, 6 questions mentally without using the pen, without writing a lot of stuff down, then you're saving so much time that you can potentially invest them in those questions which do require a lot of time, in which you have to write down all cases and record a lot of data before getting to the answer. So while you have to be oriented towards the objective of solving QA questions without pen, uh, but it is not an end all be all game. And it is definitely not a game that you have to engage in every time. It's like, yes, you should leave the outswinging delivery in cricket alone if there are lots of slip fielders there. But then again, if the ball is full and it is in your hitting zone, at that time you can't say, no, this the bowler is bowling outswinger, so I will not hit it. Basically, it is a case by case basis. Sometimes you would be able to solve a question without the pen, sometimes you wouldn't be able to. Don't get disheartened or saddened by the fact that you were unable to see something very, very insightful or something that makes it extremely easy. But what makes it worth your while is be actively on the lookout and see, not just QA, DILR, VARC, everywhere. You simply have to understand that at this time, maybe we don't know. Maybe our skill level is not as high as somebody who is more proficient than us. But then take it as an opportunity that, okay, now I get to learn this wonderful new technique. I'll get to learn this new approach to solving a question and then incorporate it. This is where the insight about logging stuff into your repository comes into play. Let's say you've solved a question or you've not solved a question, doesn't matter. But at the time of analysis, when you come across a question that has been solved more smartly, more efficiently than the usual way that you had picked up, of course, that question should go into your repository and you should be revisiting that repository every 2 weeks and trying to apply the smart way of approaching it. Basically, what we're trying to build here is muscle memory. if you are able to come up with the smart way of solving it after a lot of iterations, yes, you're moving towards the ultimate goal of being the best version of yourselves, which is all that anyone can ask you for. The next question for VARC, should we focus on speed and accuracy? Uh, let's say, see, there are again multiple aspects to this. I, for one, don't focus on speed at all. I only focus on accuracy because I know that my speed is at a level that is decent enough. Decent enough as in I read fairly fast and therefore I'm focusing mainly on accuracy. But at the same time, even when I'm focusing on accuracy, I'm not hung up about making sure that all my VARC answers are absolutely correct. I am playing a gambling game. I know that out of, let's say, 16 English questions, I would be certain about 6 to 7 of my answers that these have to necessarily be right. About the remaining 9 to 10 questions, I'm fairly certain that I will get around 80 to 85% of them right. So, for me personally, my objective is let me definitely attempt all RC questions because even if I get one right for three wrong, it is a net positive outcome for me. It is not a net loss. Then again, the problem with this is I'm saying all of this focus on accuracy when my speed is built up. The problem with this entire thought on every outcome, whether I should be focusing on speed or whether I should be focusing on accuracy is not something that you can build consciously. Speed is a natural consequence of you having more faith. So you have been solving a lot of QA questions. Of course, your rate of doing the QA questions will go up. In the same vein, when you're solving a lot of VARC questions, when you're practicing a lot of RCs, doing a lot of VA, yes, your rate of doing the questions will go up, but it is not something that would happen when you focus on it. Okay, I have to do this question within 1 minute. I have to do this question within 2 minutes. You cannot have time frames like that for the simple reason that every question is different. And prior to you interacting with a question, if you come up with a timeline, more often than not, what would happen is you would not stick to that timeline, which would lead to a feeling of disappointment, which would have a knock-on effect on your subsequent questions. So that is not really ideal for you. Right now, what you should be focusing on in VARC or when you're taking the test is start the test, read the first paragraph of a passage. If you feel, okay, yes, I'm understanding what this is, go ahead, read the rest of it, attempt the questions, done. If you read the first paragraph and it seems Latin to you, it seems foreign, I don't understand what is happening here entirely, then you leave the passage for the time being and you move on. Please beware, I'm not saying leave this passage entirely for the rest of the paper. Leave this passage for the time being and move on. Later on, when you feel like, okay, I have attempted everything that I could, let me come back to this, that would be ideal. Additionally, far too many people, and I have seen this in the classroom discussions that I'm having with my own kids, people have a very wrong approach to English. Yes, elimination is important, but elimination does not translate into what is the problem with A, what is the problem with B, what is the problem with C, what is the problem with D. If you have that approach to elimination, then you will always find some problem with every option. Every option everywhere has some problem or the other. Sometimes it is too narrow, sometimes it is too wide, sometimes it is too subjective, sometimes it is too generic, sometimes it is too specific. These fun terms or making statements like this was not mentioned in the passage for questions which says which of the following if true would weaken the author's argument, and then for that people have a response of ऐसा तो कुछ पैसेज में बोला नहीं था. हाँ भाई, ऐसा पैसेज में नहीं बोला था. क्वेश्चन का नेचर तो देखो, which of the following if true, which means you are going to use information outside of the passage. What you should instead be focusing on, what instead you should be focusing on is, यार पढ़ते हैं, जितना समझ में आएगा मारते हैं. अगर अपने को ज्यादा टाइम लग रहा है, अगर अपने को ज्यादा टाइम लग रहा है, लाइट लेते हैं, आगे बढ़ते हैं. डू नॉट गेट इनटू द माइंडसेट। जैसे क्वांट के अंदर व्हेन यू सॉल्व, यू नो फॉर सर्टेन कि तुम्हारा आंसर ठीक है कि नहीं है। देर आर इंस्टेंसेस वेर यू मेक केयरलेस एरर्स, एंड यूजुअली द केयरलेस एरर वाला ऑप्शन इज वन ऑफ द अर्लीस्ट वंस अमंग द लिस्ट ऑफ ऑप्शंस। हाँ, वैसा कभी कभी होता है, बट अंग्रेजी के अंदर, VARC के अंदर, either you know either you get to a point where you're doing elimination appropriately, and appropriate elimination would be A और B ऑप्शन में से कौन सा बेटर है। अगर A जीत गया तो A और C ऑप्शन में से कौन सा बेटर है। अगर C जीत गया तो C और D में से कौन सा बेटर है। C जीत गया तो अब C मारेंगे। Remember, in RC, the expectation is not for you to find the perfect option, because rarely ever would there be a perfect option. Your objective is to find the best option among the four, and therefore it has to be a death match that keeps on happening in rounds. There are 3 rounds to it, 3 eliminations, 1 winner, and that is your best answer, and you mark it and move on. And then, basically, why I'm saying that is, एलिमिनेशन, एक गलत अप्रोच टू एलिमिनेशन इज ए में ये दिक्कत है, बी में ये दिक्कत है, सी में ये दिक्कत है, डी में ये दिक्कत है। द अदर अप्रोच टू एलिमिनेशन इज, और द अदर अप्रोच विच इज क्वासी एलिमिनेशन इज, हमारे मन में आ चुका है कि बी आंसर है, तो अब ए के अंदर ये दिक्कत है, सी के अंदर ये दिक्कत है, डी के अंदर ये दिक्कत है। इफ यू अप्रोच इट दैट वे, वेर यू think you're doing elimination, but you're actually engaging in selection only after the fact, after you have identified what your precise answer should be, and then you move into the elimination mindset कि इसको हटाना है, इसको हटाना है. Of course you will find reasons, but beware whatever justifications or reasons you're using to eliminate the other options, if that were applied to your option, that if your option is also getting eliminated, then your reason is of course inadequate. So for the time being, focus on simply having a better understanding. Speed is a natural consequence of you having more faith in your abilities. The more practice you do, the speed will go up. It is always advisable, at least according to me, to focus on accuracy. The more accurate you are, the better outcomes you would have. And there is a limit to which you should be chasing accuracy. Do not go so over the top crazy about accuracy that you end up investing more time than it is worthwhile to get returns. Say, for instance, in there is a very common thought, para jumble or odd one out to attempt karna hi chahiye in exam. And I ascribe to that. But I also ascribe to the fact, पैरा जंबल तो 1 minute 30 seconds के अंदर हो रहा है, तभी अटेम्प्ट करना चाहिए। अदरवाइज फिल इन अ रैंडम ऑर्डर जो भी लग रहा है और बढ़ो आगे। अब पैरा जंबल क्योंकि अटेम्प्ट करना ही करना, और उसको ठीक करने के चक्कर में हमने 4 मिनट इन्वेस्ट कर दिए एक पैरा जंबल पे, तो यू आर स्टिल लूजिंग आउट। द टू रिसोर्सेज यू हैव व्हाइल टेकिंग अ टेस्ट इज द टाइम दैट यू हैव एंड द पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ नेगेटिव दैट यू कैन अवॉइड। यही दो चीजों पे ध्यान देना है। सो अगर नेगेटिव नहीं हो रहा पैराजंबल के क्वेश्चन में, दैट डज नॉट मीन यू आर नॉट लूजिंग आउट ऑन इट। यू कैन स्टिल लूज आउट ऑन इट इफ यू इन्वेस्टेड फार टू मच टाइम देन व्हाट इट डिजर्व्स। ओके, VARC, अभी एक्यूरेसी पे ही ध्यान दो। अभी क्या, हमेशा ही एक्यूरेसी पे ही ध्यान दो। स्पीड तुम्हारे कंट्रोल में है भी नहीं। इवन इफ यू फोकस ऑन स्पीड, नथिंग ग्रेट विल चेंज एनीवे। Next question. Everyone has different approaches to analysis of mocks. Why does that happen? This seems more like a inquisition rather than a query that you are facing. Okay, I can only talk to what I feel about analysis of mocks. देखो, the videos about how to do analysis of mocks is present on my channel and everything. Why everyone has a different approach to analysis of mock is simply based on what they feel is appropriate as follow-up action. See, a lot of people with their different styles of analysis of mocks, all of them mean well. All of them mean well. But far too often, why I disagree with different approaches to analysis of mocks. I don't want, see, in analysis, there is a certain school of thought which says you should be doing a lot of number crunching, wherein how many you got right, how many you got wrong, you could have gotten these many more right, you could have done these many more questions, this topic is strong, this topic is weak. Getting into far too much numeric analysis, which is okay to an extent, But then if you're a slave to numbers, you miss out on the qualitative part of it. One, there are certain question types, there are certain ways of solving questions that we are missing out on. And secondly, you're not really learning about not making the mistakes that you did earlier. You're simply looking at outcomes. It is as good as पिछले एक साल में अगर आपको 3 बार बुखार हुआ है, you have suffered or you had fever for 3 times. I can tell you you had fever for 3 times. But if I'm not getting into, okay, you drink a lot of cold water, you got wet in rain while you were outside, and then came home and did not change your uh, damp clothes for a long period of time, or you had food poisoning which was accompanied by fever. All of these fever points are caused by different things. But if you simply look at it statistically, it would be okay. I had fever, I had fever, I had fever. So what I'm more interested in, or you should be more interested in at the time of analysis of mocks, should be what caused your problem rather than what was the outcome. The symptoms and the let's say the score and the marks and how many you got correct, how many you got wrong, what was your accuracy rate, what was not your accuracy rate. Yes, they are important to an extent, but they are not the end all be all. The end all be all is your ability to solve questions from one mock to the other. I keep on saying this in multiple places. I should probably explain it by the help of a diagram. I'll show you what I mean by that. Uh, See, the objective is right now, out of these many mistakes, these are the potential count of mistakes that you can make. So every mock you take, if your potential error count isn't reducing, isn't reducing, then taking that mock becomes a futile exercise, because all you did was engage in an activity that told you, okay, what your current state is, without giving you tools or resources to making you better. The objective for taking a lot of mocks, as people say, is by the time CAT rolls around, out of these many potential errors, this was the total potential errors. If you have made all these silly errors by the time your mock season is over, then the potential errors that you can make within CAT is so few, and therefore the likelihood of you scoring high in the actual exam is going to be higher. The objective, which is why I say I don't really care about how many marks you get in mocks. I don't really care about what percentile you get in mocks. I don't really care about what your accuracy rate was in mocks, because as numbers, they can be heavily manipulated. You have the same kid in one test series, let's call it UA test series, one kid is getting 98 percentile, but in 3 different MCATs, that person is getting 85 percentile. And then that same person in an IMS mock is getting 72 percentile. It's the same kid. It's not like it's a different kid. But if he looks at this score, he would be like, okay, I'm fairly well prepared. If he looks at this score, he's like, I'm on the cusp of doing well. If he looks at this score, then he realizes there are several gaps in my preparation and I need to be working harder and harder. I'm saying we need to change our mindset to, okay, I don't care about this score because this is useless. What all errors did I make in the test? Okay, this I made an assumption about the numbers being positive when the question clearly said integral. This is an error that I should not be repeating in future. Here, while reading the RC passage or while reading the question within the RC, I missed out on a critical word called except, and I should not be doing this. Or within DILR, okay, this recording style I am not familiar with. I make a absolutely separate, different kind of table that takes up a lot of space and time, but does not really lead to the answers, and I get confused in that. I should not be picking up this style. In fact, I should be learning it from the solution that is provided to me so that in future I don't make similar errors. When you're getting 98 percentile or when you're getting 72 percentile, I'm saying your analysis, your approach to solving should not vary. Every time it should be the same. Yes, we are slaves to numbers. We are live in an extremely data-centric society with silly things like how many likes and guys subscribe to my channel and everything. Please, you have to like this post to show your attendance and appreciation and all of that. But in the grand scheme of things, the number of likes a post has is good for the Facebook management, is good for Telegram, is good for whatever, YouTube and everything. But these numbers don't really mean anything by themselves. If I say my post has been liked, I'm not, मतलब मेरे तो post इतना popular भी नहीं है. But if I say my post has been liked by 9 people, while it may look like a huge number, अब बताओ ये 9 people, is this a wonderful post or not a wonderful post? Or 9 people तो फिर भी by the social media day and age we are living, it is not that great. Let's say my post was liked by 89 people. Do you realize अगर 89 people are liking a post out of roughly, let's say, 25,000 people on my group, अगर न्यूमेरिकली ही देखना है, 89 people are liking my post, लगता है क्या बात है, बहुत अच्छा पोस्ट चल रहा है, बहुत बढ़िया. 24,911 people in the group did not find the post worthy of liking. Should this making me sad? Or let's say, does it amazingly change the quality of my post if more people like my post? These number-based insights, these number-based outcomes that people are chasing after, it is an absolutely useless thing, which is why if you have been following this channel or Telegram channel, we don't really care about the numeric output we get from it. We are here to do our job and we will do it well without pride. If I had to break down numbers, this on our group, we have been sending questions from February. By now, we have covered happily more than, oh, even if I were to be a little conservative, so February, March, 7 months. Let me average it out at 30 days, 210 days, 210 days. So I will take away 2/5 of this. 2/5 of this is, sorry, 2/7 of this, so 150 days. 150 days, every day we are sending 15 questions. 150 into 15, so 2250 questions in quant practice. Let's say some of them were repeated because that is also a problem. So let's say 2100 QA questions for practice. We have sent DILR sets 3 per day in that time period. So 150 into 3, 450 DILR sets, English forms, this and that. We are doing, in terms of numbers, the numbers that matter, in terms of providing you with adequate content, we are doing that. But we are not really concerned with how many people are actually liking or sharing or subscribing. Never have you encountered a post from our side doing this, because certain metrics are important. Certain metrics are absolutely important. But a lot of metric-based understanding is useless. Coming back to this original question, which was talking of, okay, let me change the background again. Everybody has different approaches to analysis of mocks. Somebody feels by numeric analysis they can do better, works. My approach to analysis of mocks is not really uh, numeric analysis. It is more about how can I improve my skill, how can I identify errors that I made, how can I be better at handling similar sorts of questions in future. So my focus is different. Somebody else might have a focus of can you find questions that you can do faster in an exam? Somebody else might have a different focus. So it's not like any of them are wrong. I'm not saying any of them are wrong. I can only speak to why my analysis style is the way it is. And it's like, how do I put it? Different coaches have different things that they focus on. So mm, there are, let's say, in order to be a world class athlete these days, you need a strength and conditioning coach, you need a sport ka coach, you need a psychologist, you need a masseuse, you need all sorts of things. And everyone would say they help you with your post match recovery, they help you with your preparation for the next match, but all of them have a separate focus. So you have to identify what works best for you, what is the, let's say, what is the approach or what is the way by which you feel you would be best served, and then follow that. Here, I would also make a slight allowance for some people. There are two kinds of fraudulent people within this realm of analysis of marks. One is teachers who know better, teachers or mentors or people who are giving you advice who know better, yet they realize that analysis of mocks is a painful task. So let me provide an easier and more digestible option, even though it is not as beneficial. For instance, uh, everyone knows that by the time, or everyone knows, or everyone here, I'm guessing, would have experience, by the time the quant section comes around, we are sort of fatigued, we are sort of tired. And in case you don't build up your stamina of sitting for long periods, it would not benefit you. Additionally, uh, but if you tell a student, okay, as soon as the test gets over, take a 10-minute break, talk to whatever other person you want to, and then get to analysis right away. Start with the DILR sets that you missed in the exam, start with the QA questions, do all of that. And if you do it right after the test, you would be sitting at a stretch for close to 7 hours. This is painful. This is what I say. And this is painful. The problem with that is, the good thing with that is, what it also subconsciously does is, if you become accustomed to sitting down and working for 7 hours straight, at the end of 1 hour, 20 minutes, for the last 40 minutes of QA, where fatigue is a big challenge, and as a result of fatigue, careless errors are a big challenge. If you're accustomed to sitting down for 7 hours straight in one go, you're definitely not getting fatigued at the end of 2 hours. Your brain would be fresh, your brain would still be working at peak ability, and thereby your likelihood of doing better in that section is higher. This is something that you can corroborate by taking QA sectionals versus QA section within mocks. Within QA section, within in mocks, it is highly likely that people make careless errors because it is the third section. By then, the brain is already has a knock-on effect from whatever we did in DILR, whatever we did in VARC, and we simply want the process to be over. But if it is a sectional, because we are fresh, we tend to perform better there. So because sitting for 7 hours straight is painful, there are certain teachers who would make allowances for that and say, nahi, nahi, us din mat karo analysis, agle din karna and everything, despite knowing that it is counterproductive to your preparation. एक तो ये टाइप के दूसरे fraudulent तो क्या मतलब, there are certain well intentioned people, there are certain well intentioned students जो भयंकर एडवाइस दे रहे हैं यार. दिस अभी सोशल मीडिया के जमाने में ना, वी हैव गॉट पीपल हु कैन गेट अ प्लेटफॉर्म एट एनी लेवल, एनी लेवल. अब हालत ये है कि आदमी यार खुद से, मतलब, आई एम नॉट सेइंग अ किड कैन नॉट बी अ गुड टीचर, अ किड कैन नॉट शेयर थिंग्स विथ यू, but there are so many kids who are becoming experts at things that they have not yet mastered themselves. They make terrible careless errors, और वो लोगों को बता रहे भाई ऐसे कर लेना चाहिए, वैसे कर लेना चाहिए, वैसे कर लेना चाहिए. और फिर ठीक है, इट इज डेफिनेटली अ फ्री कंट्री, यू हैव फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच, यू कैन डू वट एवर यू वांट, यू कैन से वट एवर यू वांट, बट एज एस्पिरेंट्स जो ये कर रहा है, सी देयर आर सर्टेन पीपल हु आर हियर ओनली टू टेल यू कि हाँ भाई दिस वर्कड फॉर मी, हम आज भी ये कर रहे, दिस वर्क्स फॉर मी, these are the separate options, see what fits you best. And then you have these experts who know नहीं यही चलता है, ऐसे ही करना चाहिए. Please beware of that. Far too many, क्या बताएं, pseudo experts float in the market, especially of the recent student variety. पिछले साल मेरा कैट में XYZ परसेंटाइल आ गया, तो अब हम इतना इतना कर देंगे। यार अच्छा है, तेरा बहुत अच्छी परसेंटाइल आया, बहुत अच्छी बात है, होपफुली यू डू एक्सट्रीमली वेल इन फ्यूचर, but then you have to question, why is this person doing whatever this person is doing? Is it for clout? Is it for some sort of help? And if it is for help, if it is for help, then it is very weird when somebody says, please like the video, subscribe and everything. फिर help की बात नहीं रही ना, then you are seeking clout in return. करो भाई करो, देखना. So see the source of the information that you're getting, the reason behind whatever that source is saying. If that makes sense to you, that is how you should be doing it. If that reason doesn't make sense to you, then find the reason that works for you. Don't find the way to analyze mocks basis the simplest way or the most least time consuming way, because that it is as good as, मेरे को वेट लूज करना है, लेकिन मेरे को सबसे सस्ती एक्सरसाइज बता दो जिससे वेट लूज की जा सकती है, जिससे मेरा टाइम भी ना लगे, एफर्ट भी ना लगे, लेकिन वेट लूज हो जाए. It's not that, it doesn't work that way. Anything that is worthwhile chasing after will require time and effort. Okay, the last question, or not really a question, this is my own addendum, discussion about stress management. It has been pointed out to me, and I quite rightly agree, that I have been dismissive of people being under stress. I have been dismissive of people being under stress in these videos, in general interactions with people. And for that, I hold my hand up high and say, okay, yes, I have been dismissive of people having stress. There are two reasons to it. I'm not saying you're not feeling stress. Me saying you don't have stress does not translate into you not having stress. Yes, you do have stress. Lots of people have stress. And I am mindful and cognizant of the fact. Why I take on the villain's persona for such situations or for such interactions is, the world doesn't care if you have stress. दुनिया को फर्क नहीं पड़ता. As much as I would want to be the knight in shining armor and tell you कि भाई नहीं नहीं बेटा, बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हो, बहुत अच्छी बात है, बहुत है, दुनिया को फर्क नहीं पड़ता. अगर तुम काम कर रहे हो तो तुम्हें स्ट्रेस जो होगा वो पॉजिटिव स्ट्रेस होगा, इट विल स्पर यू वांट टू डू मोर वर्क. अगर तुम काम नहीं कर रहे हो और फिर तुम्हें स्ट्रेस हो रहा है, तो दिक्कत है, और उसके बाद मेरा विलन होना जस्टिफाइड भी हो जाता है. It is more of a character that I have to play, because if you go around, if you go around different groups, different places that you are, ये समझो, बेटा तुमसे हो जाएगा, बेटा अभी भी पॉसिबल है, बेटा कर सकते हो, बेटा ये, बेटा वो, saying positive reaffirming stuff, ये हर जगह अवेलेबल है आपके लिए. Somebody telling you harsh facts about preparation and harsh facts about effort, ये I don't think there is an availability of that, and that I feel is something that you need. There are two kinds of individuals. One who get motivated by positive affirmation. तुम्हारे अंदर potential है, तुम कर सकते हो, you can get better, if your recent growth has been tremendous, ये चलता है. एंड देन देर आर पीपल हु रिस्पॉन्ड टू नेगेटिव मोटिवेशन, जिसको क्लास के अंदर अगर हम बेइज्जती करें, उसके बाद वो आदमी, नहीं ये कैसे बोल दिया सर ने मेरे को, तो मेरे से लड़के मेरा मुंह बंद कराने के लिए भी एक्स्ट्रा पढ़ लोगे तो हम खुश हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, क्योंकि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आई वांट द सेम थिंग दैट यू वांट, दैट यू डू एक्सीडिंगली वेल इन द एग्जाम. मेरे को कोई फर्क, बिकॉज अपनी इंडस्ट्री की टाइमलाइन सोच समझना, next year you wouldn't, if at all you crack cat and you move on to a B school, next year you wouldn't care about me and you wouldn't even recall भी बहुत low रहेगा, and that's okay. क्योंकि जिंदगी का दस्तूर है, अपने 12th क्लास से जब निकलते हैं तो उस टाइम पे लगता है कि नहीं यार यही दोस्त है, इनके साथ जिंदगी भर बना कर रखेंगे. रेयरली डू पीपल मेंटेन फ्रेंडशिप्स विद देयर फ्रेंड्स फ्रॉम क्लास 12. इक्का दुक्का दोस्त बच जाते, but the entire large group that we were a part of, we don't stay in touch with them, and that's okay. Not that हम class 12 वाले दोस्त हो रहे तुम्हारे, but the point is, as you progress in life, there are important milestones that you cross. At that time they seem like the most important thing. आगे बढ़ोगे तो किसी को मतलब नहीं है. So stress management की जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, while I am not let me be more articulate on this. While I'm not denying that you are under stress, I am saying get accustomed to the idea that nobody cares Nobody in this world, apart from you, cares about the stress that you're getting. So either you accept it as a fact of life and then move on and keep working and doing stuff over and over again, or you get mired in your own world and say, oh my god, I am under so much stress, my life is so terrible, it my office timings are so harsh, I cannot come back and study. अगर ये वाली हालत में पहुंच गए हो तो फिर पता है, you have started seeing yourself as the victim. And as much as the एंड्रू टेट भैया अभी रिसेंटली में बैन हुए हैं ना, एंड्रू टेट फॉर हिज व्यूज ऑन विमेन एंड हिज व्यूज ऑन क्या बताएं, मेल अथॉरिटी, काफी टॉक्सिक, काफी यूजलेस. But there are certain ideas that he had about work, about getting your life in order, about becoming better every day. Those ideas were fairly रीजनेबल. वही आइडिया है. अगर आपको अपनी जिंदगी में बहुत दुख लग रहा है और आप उसका बस रोना कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए उसको ठीक करने के लिए कुछ काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो जिंदगी ठीक नहीं होने वाली. सिर्फ रोना ही चलेगा. अगर आप उसको ठीक करने के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, फिर रोने का कोई फायदा नहीं है, और तब रोना आएगा भी नहीं. ये समझना, फॉर एवरी वन हु इज अंडर ट्रमेंडस स्ट्रेस इन कैट प्रेप और वट एवर अदर फेजेस ऑफ लाइफ, for everyone who is under tremendous stress, I'm sure you've had days when you felt proud of the effort you put in. The problem is, there haven't been a lot of days when you felt proud of the effort you put in, not because you were unable to put in the effort, but because you chose not to put in the effort. Watching a Premier League match on a Saturday, or watching the India Pakistan cricket match on whatever day, those teams that you are fanatical about, or those cricket matches that you are fanatical about, those players don't care if you do well in cat this year or not. वो टीम हारती है, तुम रोते हो. वो टीम अगर हारती भी है ना, अपने पैसे बना रही है, दे आर स्टिल अर्निंग मनी, दे आर स्टिल अर्निंग ट्रक लोड्स ऑफ मनी. तुम अगर वहां पे टाइम बर्बाद करते हो ना, और फिर तुम्हारा खराब होता है ये साल, उन टीम के प्लेयरों को दो पैसे का फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. उनकी पॉकेट में पैसा आ गया. दिस एंटायर स्पोर्ट्स मॉडल और फैनेटिसिज्म और फैनशिप arises from the idea they want to be relatable, they want to be a part of your life, while whatever happens in your life is of no consequence to them. They make money off you. Please अपनी लाइफ की प्रायोरिटी सीधा करना. We are extremely self-centered people. We are looking to improve ourselves. उस टाइम पे there is no space for anything else. ये तो फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑन स्ट्रेस मैनेजमेंट हो गया. दूसरा पार्ट ऑन स्ट्रेस मैनेजमेंट पता है, अभी भी फार टू मेनी पीपल, कैट इज फेयरली क्लोज नाउ. अब तक इज्जत से आपका सिलेबस खत्म हो जाना चाहिए. आपको अब तक कम से कम 7-8 मॉक्स दे दिए होने चाहिए, इन द वर्स्ट केस पॉसिबल. अच्छे केस में तो अच्छे से 20-25 मॉक्स हो चुके होंगे. बट इफ यू आर नॉट एट दैट स्टेज, इफ यू आर नॉट एट दैट स्टेज, इफ यू आर लुकिंग फॉर तरकीबें एंड टेक्निक्स की, नहीं हम कैसे काम करें कि मेरे इतने मॉक्स भी निकल जाए, मेरा रिवीजन भी हो जाए, मेरा सारा टॉपिक कवरेज भी हो जाए, मेरे को सारे डाउट्स भी सुलझ जाए, मेरा ये भी हो जाए, मेरा वो भी हो जाए. नहीं मिलता यार सब कुछ. फॉर यू स्टार्टिंग लेट एंड देन एक्सपेक्टिंग एवरीथिंग दैट समबडी हु हैज बीन वर्किंग सिंस लास्ट ईयर और सिंस जनवरी, उस लेवल की प्रेप मेरी हो जाए डिस्पाइट मी हैविंग स्टार्टेड लेट, इट इज इम्पॉसिबल एंड अनफेयर ऑफ यू टू एक्सपेक्ट दैट. अब अगर वो नहीं मिल रहा तो स्ट्रेस है. यार लोगों ने तो 8-8 10-10 मॉक्स दे दिए, अभी तो मेरा आधा ही क्वांट हुआ है. ठीक है यार, तेरा आधा क्वांट हुआ है, अभी खत्म करो क्वांट, उसके बाद जितने मॉक्स दे पाएंगे दे पाएंगे. देयर आर टू काइंड्स ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स इन लाइफ. वन, दैट यू कैन सॉल्व. द वंस दैट यू कैन सॉल्व, यू वर्क ऑन देम. उन पे रोना गाना स्ट्रेस लेने का कोई मुद्दा नहीं है. There are the second kind of problems that you cannot solve. The problems that you cannot solve are called constraints. You work around them. The fact that you would not be able to take as many mocks as somebody who has been preparing for a longer period of time is a constraint. वो ब्रह्म सत्य है, उसको नहीं बदल सकते. अगर नहीं बदल सकते तो ठीक है, you make do with whatever time you have left. Be active in the time that is left with you. Far too many people are taking stress about things that you cannot control. मतलब थिंग्स लाइक, अभी रिजर्वेशन के चक्कर में हमारी सीटें चली जाएंगी, और मेरे कॉलेज का ये मेरे नंबर से मेरे को शॉर्टलिस्ट मिला है कि नहीं। अभी 15,000 वीडियोस ऑन एडमिशन क्राइटेरिया आने चालू होंगे। अहमदाबाद के क्या एडमिशन क्राइटेरिया इस साल, लखनऊ का क्या एडमिशन क्राइटेरिया इस साल। आईआईएम्स का एडमिशन क्राइटेरिया इज्जत से बताएं, तुम्हें 2 पैसे का फर्क नहीं पड़ना चाहिए। एफएमएस और अदर इंस्टीट्यूट्स के तुम्हें फर्क पड़ना चाहिए, क्योंकि आईआईएम का एडमिशन क्राइटेरिया जो भी है, अप्लाई तो तुमने सब जगह कर लिया है। जो भी होना होगा, कैट तो तुम दे ही रहे, कैट दोगे, उसके बाद कॉल आई तो ठीक है, कॉल नहीं आई तो ठीक है। अभी बैठ के जो लोग रिसर्च करेंगे कि अहमदाबाद के क्राइटेरिया में वो 10th के स्कोर के कारण मेरे को नुकसान हो गया, या बैंगलोर के क्राइटेरिया में वो ग्रेजुएशन के स्कोर के कारण मेरे को नुकसान हो गया, दीज आर थिंग्स बियॉन्ड योर कंट्रोल। इसके पीछे समय भी क्यों बर्बाद कर रहा। यू आर एडिंग स्ट्रेसर्स इन योर लाइफ अबाउट विच यू कैन डू नथिंग। द ओनली थिंग्स दैट यू कैन डू इज अभी बैठ के जितना भी पॉसिबल हो पा रहा है टाइम लगाते, पढ़ते। स्ट्रेस तब आता है ना जब आप इनएक्टिव होके फ्यूचर आउटकम्स का डिफरेंट, वो डॉक्टर स्ट्रेंज वाला 14 मिलियन समथिंग 6 खोज रहे होते हैं आउटकम्स। जब आप वो डॉक्टर स्ट्रेंज वाले डिफरेंट फ्यूचर्स देख रहे होते हैं तब स्ट्रेस आता है। अगर आप इन द हीट ऑफ द बैटल है, इफ यू आर एंगेजिंग इन एक्टिविटी, तब कुछ याद नहीं आता। फॉर दोज ऑफ अस हु हैव प्लेड स्पोर्ट्स एट एनी लेवल, कोई भी स्कूल वूल पे भी अगर आप क्रिकेट विकेट खेले हैं, यही समझो, जब बॉलर फास्ट बॉलिंग कर रहा होता ना, बाहर से देखते तो भयंकर डर लगता, अबे यार ये तो मुंह पे मार देगा, पैर पे लग गई तो पैर टूट जाएगा, ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ थिंग्स कम टू आवर हेड। लेकिन अगर आप बैटिंग कर रहे हैं ना, तो उस टाइम पे अगर बॉलर बहुत फास्ट बॉलिंग भी करा रहा है, बल्ला तो चलाते ही है, और जब बल्ला चला रहा है ना उस टाइम पे बॉलर से डर जितना भी लगाओ, बल्ला चल रहा है, एक्टिविटी हो रही है, बल्ले से लगा, अब 1 रन दौड़ रहे हैं, एज लग के चौका लग गया, क्या पता मीट ऑफ द बैट से लग गया तो छक्का वक्का चला गया, कुछ भी हो गया, वर्स्ट केस में आउट हो गए, वापस आ गए। बट इट इज मोर द fear of the needle rather than the injection itself that is killing people। हम बोल रहे हैं वो fear of the needle वाला फेज को ना, use it productively, your stress will automatically get managed। I am not talking of meditation कर लेना या ये कर लेना वो कर लेना, वो सब करना है करो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। बट अभी जैसे अब किसी एक बच्चे से रिसेंटली बात हुई थी, जॉब गोइंग किड, पढ़ने का टाइम नहीं मिलता, पढ़ने का टाइम नहीं मिलता, शेड्यूल वेड्यूल पूछना चालू क्या, सुबह 6 बजे उठते हैं, 6:30 तक जिम जाते हैं, फिर 8 बजे वापस आते हैं, फिर ऑफिस के लिए तैयार होते हैं, 8:30 बजे ऑफिस के लिए निकल जाते हैं। और फिर यही बोला, भाई 1.5 घंटा तेरे को जिंदगी में जिम में इन्वेस्ट करना गवारा है, लेकिन तेरा कंप्लेन है कि भाई तेरे पास कैट के लिए पढ़ने का टाइम नहीं हो रहा। नहीं सर, जिम तो जरूरी है, फिजिक नहीं मेंटेन रहेगा, हेल्थ नहीं रहेगा तो कैसे चलेगा। तो उसके बाद फिर हम ये बोलते, आई डोंट माइंड यू प्रायोरिटाइजिंग योर हेल्थ, आई डोंट माइंड यू प्रायोरिटाइजिंग योर जिमिंग, बिल्कुल करो, बट देन नो यू आर प्रायोरिटाइजिंग इट। एंड देन व्हेन यू से कैट पढ़ने का मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है, चेंज दैट स्टेटमेंट टू कैट मेरी प्रायोरिटी नहीं है, मेरी प्रायोरिटी अदर थिंग्स है, इसीलिए मेरे पास कैट का टाइम नहीं है। यू विल नेवर हैव लैक ऑफ टाइम फॉर थिंग्स दैट यू आर प्रायोरिटाइजिंग। अगर आपका कल एग्जाम रहता है तब आप 8-8 9-9 घंटे भी पढ़ लेते हैं, मतलब स्कूल और कॉलेज में पता नहीं बच्चों ने किया कि नहीं, हम तो खूब करते थे। When you say I don't have time for something, you are effectively saying I don't prioritize it as much as something else। Now that priority need not necessarily be gymming, that priority could very well be chilling। बहुत सारे लोगों का ऑफिस 9 बजे चालू होता है, शाम में 7 बजे खत्म हो जाता है, लेकिन दिन भर ऑफिस इतना टायरिंग होता है, उसके बाद तो पढ़ा ही नहीं जाता। भाई तो तुम इज्जत से बोल रहे, अगर वही जॉब में कंटिन्यू करना है तुम्हें अगले साल, तो लगे रहो ऑफिस पे ही ध्यान दो, कैट वैट छोड़ो। घूम फिर के पता है ये पूरा स्ट्रेस मैनेजमेंट का आइडिया, व्हाई आई वांटेड टू टॉक ऑफ इट, वन वाज ऑफ कोर्स माय फॉल्ट, wherein I may come across as somebody who is discounting your stress, and I am willing to take that villainous role because I feel there is a lacuna there, somebody needs to fill that role। The second part of it is only take stress about things that you have control over। अभी तुम्हें कौन सा एग्जाम सेंटर मिलेगा कैट में, इसके ऊपर तुम्हारा कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है ना। क्या तुम्हें घर के पास सेंटर मिलेगा कि घर से दूर सेंटर मिलेगा, तुम्हें मॉर्निंग का स्लॉट मिलेगा, तुम्हें आफ्टरनून का स्लॉट मिलेगा, उसके बारे में हम बिल्कुल नहीं सोच रहे। अगर तुम्हें दुखी होना ही है, इफ यू वांट टू टेक स्ट्रेस अबाउट थिंग्स दैट आर बियॉन्ड योर कंट्रोल एंड आर इंपॉर्टेंट, इज थिंक ऑफ ऑल द माल नरिश्ड चिल्ड्रन इन आवर कंट्री, उनके बारे में टेंशन लो। Think of all the old people who are being uh, dispossessed of their earnings and their household, और बच्चे जो अपने माँ बापों को रोड पे भेज दे रहे हैं, उसके बारे में स्ट्रेस लो। उसके बारे में तुम स्ट्रेस ले नहीं रहे क्योंकि वो तुम्हारे अभी क्या बताए एम्बिट ऑफ कंट्रोल, मतलब तुम्हें पता है कि यार उसके बारे में अभी तुम कुछ ज्यादा कर नहीं रहे। लेकिन अबाउट अननेसेसरी, इवन इफ इट इज रिलेटेड टू योर डोमेन, इट इज बियॉन्ड योर कंट्रोल, कुछ कर नहीं सकते, क्यों फालतू में टेंशन लेना। अभी यूटिलाइज योर टाइम टू द बेस्ट ऑफ योर एबिलिटी। जितना तुम्हें समझ में आता है, जितना तुम्हें गाइडेंस मिल रहा है, सब कुछ करो। एज लॉन्ग एज यू आर डूइंग दैट एक्टिविटी, योर स्ट्रेस विल शुड गेट मैनेज्ड। आई एम ऑफ कोर्स नॉट अ therapist or a psychologist to have a clinical opinion on this, but in whatever little time that I have spent on this earth, यही समझ में आता है जब तक आदमी चिंता कर रहा है ना, तब तक आदमी कुछ होता नहीं है उससे। और जब when you start taking action, even if you're not able to perfectly turn it into the vision that you had, you will be moving in that direction. And when you are moving in that direction, let's say I want to go from Delhi to Gurgaon, और मेरे पास कोई व्हीकल नहीं है, मेरे पास कोई पैसे नहीं, मेरे पास कुछ नहीं है। तो या तुम रो सकते हैं कि यार मेरे पास कुछ नहीं है, हम कैसे जाएंगे गुड़गांव, कैसे जाएंगे गुड़गांव, कैसे जाएंगे गुड़गांव, कैसे जाएंगे गुड़गांव। या फिर हम चलना चालू कर सकते हैं। वर्स्ट केस में मेरे को 3 दिन लग जाएगा गुड़गांव पहुंचने में, बिकॉज आई एम फैट, आई विल टेक अ लॉट ऑफ रेस्ट एंड आई विल हैव अ लॉट ऑफ ब्रेक्स। बट 3 दिन बाद तो पहुंच ही जाएंगे ना। और जब तक हम चल रहे हैं तब तक फालतू की बातें नहीं, तब चल रहे हैं, तब बढ़िया काम चल रहा है। सिमिलरली इन योर फेज, अगर तुम्हारे पास इनफ टाइम नहीं है, तुम्हारे पास इनफ क्या बताए रिवीजन का के लिए समय नहीं है, तो ठीक है, नहीं है अभी, पहले एक बार तो कवरेज खत्म करो। वंस डू व्हाट यू कैन डू, ओनली देन योर सब्सिक्वेंट कंसर्न्स आर वैलिड। That is all for today's episode. Aj, it wasn't so much a rant at the end, it was more a idea that I wanted to talk of. अगली बार, hopefully it will be something more nuanced. Okay, people, bye bye, have fun.